Okay, so it looks like it has to be a part 2 because it stopped for some reason. Okay, so basically what we've done is we've taken out those bolts there, number 10 bolts and number 13 socket set in the middle. So just move that out of the way, take the old motor out and bring in the new motor. So we'll just sit that on there and we will just put those bolts back in, and then last thing we'll do is put that back on there. Alright, so that's those 3 back on. Let's just bring this one down here. Now you notice these 2 arrows here. It's important that this bar is in the middle of those 2 arrows before you put the whole unit back in. So what we'll do is we'll just put that on there so that we can actually get to it to tighten it up. But then when we're done, once it is tightened up, before we put it back in, we'll just move it round to like there. See, so it's between the arrows. See that? Okay, so I'll just move that back and tighten that bolt up. Okay, so all tightened up, and we'll just takes a bit of doing. Yeah. Bend it back round so it's right between those, basically like that. And that should mean that when you've got it all back together and your wipers are on, that they swing the right way. Okay, so let's get that back in the car. Okay, so what we're going to do first is hook up the connector over here. Be careful with the battery, by the way, holding a big bit of metal here. Okay, so that wants to go in there, so we'll just plug that back in there. I'll just use 2 hands for this for a moment. Okay, plugged back in, and now we're going to jiggle it and get it back in position. So that was over there. That obviously wants to go on that one in there, and these 2 will line up over here like that. Okay, so we'll put our bolts back in. So that was these 3, so put those back in there, 1 in there, 1 in there, and last one in there. So I'll tighten those up, then we'll put this bar back on just here. Okay, so we've got those bolts in. Just tighten those up. 1. 2, 3. So again, this is number 10 socket set, and if you get those on all nice and tight, the rest now is just doing everything that we just did in reverse, but I'll run you through it. This bracket goes on next, slide that on there, over there. That screw went in, the bolt went in there rather, let's get it right, and then that nut went on there. And it's great because these are all number 10 socket sets, so we'll just tighten those up. Okay, that's back on now. We just need that metal plate that was just here covering the battery, which we have on the floor, and that just went over that bit there like that, and then over here. Oh, there we go. It's just got to get under that little. There's a little clip just there. Another one under there. So there we go. So we're in there, there, and there. That little rubber mount has gone back on there, which is where it should be. Good. Okay, so we just need the bolts. 1 in there and 1 in there. Okay, so that's that one's in. That big fat one there. The flathead washer. So just tighten that up. Okay, good. So that's all on now. So all we've got to do now is put back on the two big bits of plastic. We'll get those. Okay, so here's the cover. So obviously these two prongs want to come through here, and that end wants to go under there. So this piece here is going to just cover that. So let's just try and see if I can get that in. If I can do this one-handed, then you should be able to do it two-handed. Let's get that. Okay, prongs, push that back in. This little bit here goes over there. Okay, that's all in nicely. Just press it down, come over here again. This piece wants to be a rubber piece. It wants to just be covering that. So we'll just tuck that over there. A leaf. Okay. And of course it wants to shimmy over a little bit. See that cover there? It's moved a little bit, so we'll just encourage it to go back. There we go. There. Lovely. Right, okay, so now we've got that piece on. What we're going to do, we've got one more piece of plastic trim to go on, which is this piece here. And that bit just sits on the top like that. Sits down. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll put we want to get our rubber seal actually back in there. So we'll get the rubber seal, and then we're going to put these bolts back on. Okay, so there's the rubber seal. See, it's got a little clip just on the end there, so that just sits on there. So what you do, just push it on, and then just make sure it goes underneath that piece. Yeah, just push it on all the way along, and when you get to the end there, again, just make sure that it's sitting under there. There we go. Good, that's on. Right, so now we're going to put on our screws. Okay, so I'll put in the T15 screws in the corner there, one over the other side. We're going to tighten those up, and also these nuts, 4 of those, which is the number 10 socket set again, so we'll tighten those up. Okay, you probably spotted the deliberate mistake there. I put that bit of plastic on a bit too soon. So I've taken that piece bit back off, and we're going to put the wipers on now. So let's just get those in position. Okay. Right, so I've put the wiper back on. Make sure that the end is right on the bottom there, and then just jiggle these prongs until they sit in right. It might hop about a little bit, but with 2 hands, just get them in position. Like I say, just make sure that bit's right on the edge, and then we can tighten up, put the bolts back on, and the caps. That's about where you want it, like that. Okay, so I've got it on. I'm just pressing it down because that seems to work. So you hold it with one hand, and then you can flatten off these 2 smaller arms, and then you can tighten up those nuts. So that's a number 17 socket set again for that. Okay, so we're putting the next arm on there. Now obviously this one, you want it sat something like that. Okay, so I'm going to hold it in that position and put that nut on, and then holding it like that, get it nice and tight. Okay, back on in position. We're just going to put the caps on now. So one on there. Just push them on with your thumb. Okay, good. Right, now we're going to put this piece of black trim back on, which just goes on there over these points. Put it under that seal. There we go, and I'll put those nuts back on like so, all the way across. One there, and one there. Well, we'll tighten those up. Okay, all back together except for that bit of trim that landed on the floor. Right, so that's what we've got here. A little clip. Okay, and that is just going to sit in that clip, something like that. Okay, so I'm just going to literally push it back on, and that is that. Right, okay, so I'm going to put the bonnet down now and give it a whirl. Okay, now for the moment of truth to see if this was an electrical fault or if it was actually a motor. So let's put the wipers on. Praise Jar, you people. There you go, look at that. So that's how you do it. So glad that worked. Lovely. All right, okay. That's interesting. Why are they stopping down there? Stopping a little bit high. But they're not overshooting. Okay, so I'm going to adjust those now because that's obviously the rest position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back under and I'm going to slacken those off and drop them back to where they should be. Okay. Okay, so just to clarify, as I was putting that motor and arm unit back in, it must have just knocked it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just take this bit back off, undo these again, and just with everything set, I'm just going to drop these back down and then retighten them, and then they should then be in the proper rest position. Well, I hope that's been useful. Give us a thumbs up if it was. Thanks very much.